Hello, Captain. Terran is not balanced. It is incredible how little effort Terran can put in macro and still come out of it fine. Why do I have to balance between making drones and army, while Terran can just click on barracks and spam marines, marauders, and drop some mules from time to time, which gives infinite amount of money, by the way. Those animals doesn't care about microing because their units are cheap and trades incredibly efficient. Even if my Baneling connects, it doesn't matter because trades are gonna be even at best. Terran doesn't even need to tech up. Why do I have to make Investor Viper and he can stay on pure marine tank and maybe add some ghost to counter all my spellcasters? Am I so bad at the game, or is Terran not very balanced race? Tell me. This imbalanced complaint form was sent in by Kildren, a European diamond at 3.7k MMR, asking whether Terran is not very balanced or if he sucks. Let's find out. All right, and here we go. Kildren versus HTU or H2. I'm gonna stick with H2 for now. Who opened up with a reactor first opener into a CC while having a lot of gas as well. So I believe this did come from a gas first opener. Meanwhile, on the other side with Kildren, we have a hatchery first opener into what seems to me like a gas and a pool. Both overlords make their way across the map looking for a little bit of scouting information. Of course, these days with Terrans opening up with 2-Rex quite a bit with the triple Reaper, I think going for a scout in the wall is a very good move. I like how Kildren does this. Either is aware of the meta or this is something he's always been doing. Either way, I'm kind of fond of it, to be honest. We have a, like I said, a factory for H2 coming down here. Now, of course, with these first 2 Marines popping out, Kildren actually does need to be somewhat careful. He's going to pop in, sees the 2 Marines now, and starts running away for its dear life. Right? Please, run away for your dear life. I wonder if you're going to make it out. I don't think so. Usually flying towards the barracks where Marines are being produced is not the optimal play. It sounds bad, but you probably just have to fly in this general direction. Is there a pillar here somewhere? I think there's one here. Okay. Maybe you should have gone over there because your links maybe can come and help in time. At least they're going to get 1 Marine here, I think. Maybe even 2. Nah, just 1. 1 Marine will go down Kildren supply block. Wait, why are we supply block, actually? No offense, but... no. Actually, freaking offense. Okay. 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the game. Now, I am not a brilliant person. Okay, you don't have to be a brilliant person. But if you're seeing 2 Marines here, and you know your opponent opened with reactor first, the next 2 Marines are about to pop out. This Overlord, if you're flying it into your opponent's main base, reasonably is probably going to end up falling. I don't think it is a bad move to, at this point, already add a new Overlord so that you don't get massively supply blocked. Now, this might just be me being brilliant, but I think the moment it dies is not the time to start preparing for it. This is like starting to prepare for a nuke the moment it lands or the moment it gets launched. It's like, it's too late. There's no time to build the bunker anymore, my friend. That time is now 5 years behind us. I know they often say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is now. That is not the case when it comes to nuclear strikes. If you are going to get nuked, the second best time to build a nuclear bunker is not now anymore because it will not finish in time. It's the same with an Overlord. It didn't finish in time. You were supply blocked for no real reason. You're also mining way too much gas, which I don't really like, actually. What are we using this gas for? I don't quite see it. The standard is to pull out of gas so that you increase your mineral income, which is the most important thing for Zerg in the early game. I've mentioned this so many times, but as long as people are going to do it wrong, I'll have to mention it again. The only thing that produces economy are minerals. Minerals produce economy. Queens, Overlord, hatcheries, drones, all cost minerals. Gas is for tech. Gas is for better units, higher tier units. But anything eco-related, minerals. And thus in the early game, it is your goal, especially as a Zerg player, to increase your mineral income as much as possible. And that's why many players pull out of gas the moment they start speed. At least pull 2 workers out of gas. Sometimes even 3. I have seen it. Now, our Terran player here is opening up with a Hellbat push. This is fairly common as an opener from reactor first. I do not expect Kildren to be aware of this. because Kildren also wasn't aware of pulling out of gas is a good move. Kildren wasn't aware of an Overlord dying. Maybe you want to, you know, preemptively build the next one. However, there's 4 queens in position. There's 5 queens. Medevac isn't really healing. Okay, this isn't going to be great, but it's going to be a hold. Actually, it might just be great. Like, queens kind of defend for themselves, especially if the Medevac is, well, just seeing the sights, I guess. Not quite sure what that Medevac is up to. Do like the target fire here on individual Marines and just letting the Helvets go ham in the drone count. If these Helvets were being controlled about 10-15 seconds earlier, I think 12 drones would have ended up dying here. This would have been still a non-successful push for the Terran player, but it would have been kind of annoying. Now, we have 700 minerals in the bank currently for Kildren. We have about, well, 300, but some of it just got spent, so it's not entirely fair to pick this moment. There's just more money, and this is important to note. As one of the things that Kildren said was that I have to make a decision between army and drones. Now, while this is true for Zerg, especially later on in the game, at the start, this isn't actually true. This is completely false. The queen makes it so that you don't have to choose. You just build drones and you build queens at the same time. Queens don't cost larva, and you can thus just produce them while also continuously building drones. Wait, what was this Hydra timing? This is not real, right? I've never seen a Hydralisk Den pre-Fort Base, and I've never seen a Hydralisk Den pre-Evo Chambers either. This is extremely rare. I'm not familiar with this strategy. Usually when I'm not familiar with a strategy, I try to not comment on it, like especially if it's higher level games, because it could be that there's something brilliant popping out of this that I'm just not aware of. I'm going to give Kildren the same courtesy. I'm going to extend the same courtesy here until I see what this fast Hydra Den achieved, and also until I see what it stopped from doing. Like, did it stop any extra upgrades coming in early because he was spending money on muscular augments and grooved spines and the money for the Hydra Den? Or did this Hydra Den, maybe there was a huge purpose here. Maybe it's a Hydra Bane Brush without any upgrades, which I haven't seen before. I'm also no clue what this Terran is doing. Weapon Rift upgrade here for the battle cruisers. Is there any... We have 1 battle cruiser out now. I think the moment this happens, you want to throw down a Spire and probably send an Overseer into your opponent's main base, because you have no clue what's going on. This could be like some weird triple starport BC move. Your opponent could also just have brain damage and just build a BC for banter. Or it could be a YouTuber who's, 1 random battlecruiser into standard play challenge. It's completely possible. It could be anything at this point, and you need to figure it out. And thus, I really do recommend sending in an Overseer Scout. I like the Spire, even if it is quite blind. You see a battlecruiser, and I think this is a safety precaution that you pretty much have to take. Now, you do get that battlecruiser down with your queens. Honestly, pretty well done. You have a bunch of cash in the bank, and I think a lot of that cash should be getting translated either into drones or into more units at this point. Now, there is another real cool trick as a Zerg player, and that is adding production. Rather than adding 3 Roach Warrens, like you would have to do if you're Protoss or Terran, you just add more hatcheries. You can build those hatcheries in position, but we see a lot of top-level players also just build them in their main base. Dark, of course, known for having triple hatcheries in his main. I know Lambo likes to build it in like some random location over here because it's quicker reinforcements, and I'm sure there's some scientific reason for it, but just build them wherever. If you're floating money the entire time, and you feel like you need to make a choice between drones and units, despite constantly floating 1.2k minerals, then yeah, maybe it's good to add a little bit of production. If a Terran is struggling, spending on 2 barracks, I would also tell him to go up to 4 or 5 barracks. If a Zerg is struggling to spend money on 4 hatcheries, go up to 5 hatcheries, go up to 6 hatcheries. I don't give a crap. You have plenty of queens already, so I wouldn't recommend spending money in those anymore. You also have plenty of larvae, actually, 19 larvae. They're just not being used. I'd also like to make a shout out to the quick Hydra Den that we saw here, doing absolutely nothing so far. Spire is out and is starting 6 Corruptors. Now, this is an absolutely beautiful example as to why I believe you should have sent in an Overseer Scout here. This is a good run by the way. Holy crap. He did big damage there. Now, why did I say an Overseer Scout? Overseer Scout is because the Spire response is basically free, okay? Your opponent built 1 battlecruiser and they build a fusion core. If the Terran transitions out of battlecruiser altogether after that one, it still was okay for you to have a response in the Spire, because it is less money for you to invest into a Spire than it is for them to invest into a battlecruiser and a fusion core, and in the time of the starport that it takes to build a BC as well. However, if your opponent is not adding any extra battlecruisers, you don't want to build anything out of that Spire. You don't want to get +1, you don't want to get 6 Corruptors, because they're going to be practically useless. That is why the Overseer is so darn important. If you get the Overseer Scout, you see, hey, my opponent is a clown, and he's now going triple factory into 5 barracks. Getting 6 Corruptors and +1 on your air unit is definitely not going to be worth it. You could still play Muta if you really want to. I don't think that is the correct call necessarily, but these Corruptors are definitely not the correct call. Like, they're countering nothing here, except this one BC. Wait, did he build 2 BCs? Yeah, 2 BCs. Except this one BC, but I'm pretty sure at this point, you could have just held that with queens or even half a spore in position anywhere. I much rather would have seen a Hydra Bane follow-up. Now, you're continuing to add more and more drones, which is kind of weird because you're already saturated on 3 bases. Hell, I believe you're already getting oversaturated here. And as a result, now you start long-distance mining from a 5th base. These guys are also going on long distance. Yep, they are, aren't they? A couple of them definitely are. And this base is toast. Take out the 4th base, which is quite nice, I think. Good job. I'm proud of you. You did well, son. Haven't quite scouted the other base, though. There's already a different 4th again. And despite having so many workers, the difference in income is actually relatively small because you don't have enough bases to mine from. I mean, your long distance mining with freaking 16 workers over here. Your upgrades are really slow. It's kind of funny because you said you need to make decisions between drones and units, but you don't have to make decisions between drone units and upgrades. Upgrades are free. You could be throwing down an infestation pit right now. You could be throwing down, you know, +2 range or +2 carapace. I wouldn't mind carapace against a full bio army, but you're doing none of that. You pretended like Zerg has to make choices between these things, but your macro is just bad. And it's fine to admit that your macro is bad. Like, you're just not very quick. That's okay, but don't pretend that the reason that you're not getting everything is because you have to make so many decisions, you know, and you don't know what the right decision is, and you constantly need to scout. Mate, you aren't scouting at all, and you also are not making decisions. You're just not doing anything. This is like being faced with a hard decision and just freezing in your chair and looking at your screen, starting to shake for like 10 hours. And when your boss comes in asking, hey, what have you been doing? It's like, making decisions! Leave me alone! It's like, okay. Back to work you go, son. It's like, you're just floating a crap ton of cash. You have larva available. You could have been teching into anything else, yet you didn't do any of those things. You haven't been scouting either, which isn't a larva decision either. There's just a lack of APM or a lack of understanding that you need to get something done. Corruptors do actually get some kills here on Medivacs. I love that they go back despite there still being 1 Medivac around. I'm not going to flame you too much for this because honestly, despite all of your failings as a player, you're still winning this game. Queens have held the backline properly. Banelings have connected with the bio. You came in from one angle the entire time, so the fights weren't even that optimal. But they were good enough because, quite honestly, your worker count is very impressive, especially for the level that you're playing at. I don't think a lot of Zergs get to this high a drone count. Your creep threat also is actually reasonably good. So all of your fights, or almost all of your fights, are going to be partially on creep. Now, would this situation be much better if your Hive was done, you had 2-2 done, your Adrenal Glands was on the way, and you had some info on what your opponent was doing base-wise, as well as army composition-wise? Sure, all of that would be better. But for now, I think your position is completely fine as long as you manage to spend your money in any way, whether that's going to be drones or units. I don't even really care personally at this point. Like that we're getting another hatchery over here. I wouldn't mind seeing 4 hatcheries being plopped down in your main base though at this moment. I wouldn't mind seeing you go into Hive. I wouldn't mind seeing you get upgrades once again on things. It's just all really slow. This is a nice engagement. Coming from the back as well with these links. Getting the tank fire in there. Banelings all nicely into the tank. Love to see it. These bad boys, just gonna get taken out for free. Happens to the best. So your control is fairly mediocre, to be honest. I haven't really seen too many good moves. I like the Ling flank, but that was about it. It feels like you're A-moving your Banelings with your Ling army as well, while Banelings most of the time should just be move commanding past Marines and then exploding on top of them when they reach them. Tends to be a better thing than A-moving into tanks. Once again, this is a good fight for you though. Like I'm absolutely not worried at all for your position here whatsoever. You still have a lot of cash in the bank as well. You're moving into Hive, which means that the Ultra Cavern is close by. Now, the beauty of the Ultra Cavern is that you need to have absolutely no macro ability in order to spend your money once you have Ultras. Like, if you get like 7 larvas and you have enough cash, all of this money will just poop disappear like that because Ultras are freaking expensive and they just cost a single larva. I still haven't quite received the update from the lore masters how it is possible that a single roach comes out of the same larva as a single Ultra, especially given that the time difference of building is relatively big, but not big enough that something the size of a roach could then grow into an Ultra. Not quite sure how the evolution worked there. Just find it all a little bit suspicious. Zerg Cabal at work once again. 10 Overlords on the way now. Some nice oversaturation at these bases. This is not necessarily an attack I completely approve of. Usually I would approve of this, but we need to keep in mind the situation that we're in. So just think about the spot you're in right now, okay? You're a Zerg player. You have 78 army supply against 88 army supply, okay? The larva count available is 11. We don't have a unit we can produce that is very expensive and costs little larva. I guess the best unit would be the Hydralisk here, but we don't have an Ultra and we can't move these Hydras into Lurkers, so we don't get a real fighting unit. Usually I'd say with this amount of bank and with this amount of workers, taking out a planetary is good. But the moment we lose these Banelings, we don't actually have a defensive setup anymore. Like, we hardly have any units around that can truly defend. We have a couple of Queens, but actually this guy's still on 1-1. Maybe Queens are still going to be somewhat okay in that case. But you always got to be real careful. So even if your eco situation is good, you need to think, hey, how quick can I reproduce? And how much am I going to lose after, you know, making a move like this? Yes, this was technically great and you could probably leverage this in the future. But for now, what is it actually going to do? I love this Ling run by. That's a good Ling run by, especially if you would have continued killing SCVs. That would have been real good. Crater Spire? Yeah, not a huge fan of the Greater Spire personally. Here come the Banes once again. It's kind of A moving in onto tanks, onto Marauders. I guess that's the only thing really available in the army, so it's not weird that they're going to be hitting Marauders and these guys. Against very Marauder heavy armies, by the way, it can be quite good just to get a very heavy Ling count rather than getting too many Banelings, because Lings are quite powerful against them. I would not recommend losing all your Queens for free either. Something I generally, you know, I fight against. When I'm a Zerg player, it's like, don't think that's the brightest thing. This is not a good fight either. This is not it. Not a very good fight at all. Still, this situation should somewhat be fine. There's a lot of cash in the bank. We have 13 larvae still remaining that aren't being used. Now get turned into 26 Lings. We have Hydras on the way. And the upgrades are also not great for Terran. Barely has to... I guess they're also not great for you. It's just a very confusing game, this is for me. It feels like you constantly have such a huge bank, but then you're constantly not building the things that I feel like you should be getting. Just continue on Ling or Bane. Just move commanding into or A moving into Marauder tank. I think we're allowed to transition, but I don't think we should transition into Brood Lords. The problem with Brood Lords is that it slows the game down from your side so much. It makes it really difficult to make defensive rotations because the Brood Lord has such a low speed. It is good if the game is very stable and the Terran is on like a Ghost Thor army, which makes it hard for them to rotate as well. But right now it's very easy for them to rotate because they mainly have a bio army, while you still are trying to get outside bases. You can never defend outside bases with Brood Lords because by the time you show up, this bio army is going to have taken out 5 bases and then they just run away from your Brood Lords. You don't have Fungal to keep them in place. You don't have Lurkers to defend any of your side bases either. Terran actually is 16 minutes in, starting the 3-3 upgrades as well right now. She's gonna take out 2 bases, and for the first time I think in the entirety of this game, Terran now might actually be pulling ahead economically. Because yes, you still have a very good worker count, but you're mining off of, well, half a base over here, a single mineral patch in here, 4 patches over here, and well, still about 7 patches there. So this is the first time you're actually in some serious trouble. The first time in this entire game, I'm somewhat scared. A, because of your army comp, and B, because you don't really have the eco anymore. This base is now being constructed, but that's going to take a while. You're adding more Brood Lords, slowing your army down even further. This base does get cancelled. Once again, you have no clue if there is a new base here. You have no clue if there's a base on the bottom here. You have no clue if there's a base right in the the bottom right side as well. Like, you literally have no info whatsoever, and you're just going for it. Which almost never works for Zerg. Like, for Zerg, it's really important to take out mining bases, and that these mining bases can't be replaced quickly. Because then you can create an eco lead, and then over time, if you trade somewhat closely, which you have been doing, to be quite honest, then life should be okay. It's also a very odd army composition. Not a huge fan of doing this fight in range of the Planetary Fortress, who already has 32 kills right now. Majority of them coming from, well, this little bit of a fight in the past 35 seconds. Planetary over time get a lot of kills against like the smaller Zerg units specifically. Even against bigger Zerg units, like, they're pretty okay against lurkers too, if lurkers aren't in big enough numbers. 23 Banes coming in. We have Adrenal Glands. We don't have the 333 upgrades. There's not enough cash anymore for the 333 upgrades either. Now we get 15 more workers. It feels like you don't quite understand what kind of army you need in order to defend such a spread out amount of bases. Like, it's obvious to me that this is not really how you can be playing. This is a nice run by. Or, well, this would have been a very nice run by if you had more units back up here, back home. This is a good run by. Actually, I still like it. This was a good move overall. I do enjoy this. I definitely do think that was correct. The problem is just that the rest of your army is such balls. Actually such balls. I would love to see just a couple of ultras or a couple of lurkers, some type of late game unit, maybe using vipers. I saw a viper being constructed earlier, but I don't think it ever really cast a spell. Either for Parasitic Bomb or Blinding Cloud would be huge. Now, Banelings do get some decent connections here against the Marines as well. Now you have a pure Bane army, and the majority of your opponent's army is going to be Thor tankier. You can't really efficiently trade against. You're actually A-moving into Thors with Banes. That is never a good sign. And I think now you're actually kind of dead. Ah, come on. Is it Repair Mules or Manor Mules? It's kind of Manor Mules, isn't it? Maybe he wanted them for repairing and then forgot about it. We'll give H2 the benefit of the doubt. I don't like Manor Mulers. I really, really dislike Manor Mulers. They're pricks. Not a fan of that. Some nice Broodlord transition coming in once again against Thors. Not the most brilliant pick. Yeah, this is the type of game where I look at it and I think to myself, the Zerg is actually a better player, right? Like, mechanically, I don't think this was close. You're so BNAT? I don't know what that means. But you're Terran XD. I forgot the GG as well. I don't know what the BNAT means. It's probably one of these cool abbreviations that the kids use these days. I don't know any of them. But yeah, it's like one of these games where you look at this and mechanically you can see that this Zerg has it down, you know? He spends a lot of time practicing against the AI, injecting, creep tumors, all of that stuff. However, StarCraft 2 is still a strategy game. And if your strategy sucks massive balls, then your gameplay is going to suck massive balls as well. And I think that's kind of what ended up happening here. I think in the later stages, especially if you're struggling to spend your money like he was, I think you need to get some type of transition unit, whether there's going to be a lurker or an ultra. Like, these units are real easy to control. They're nice to use. They're quite expensive because, let's face it, despite having good mechanics, you were still struggling in spending your money. And on top of that, actually, your upgrades also were very poor the entire game. I mean, we're 20 minutes in, and at the end, all you had were 222 upgrades for your ground units. You definitely had the resources available to continuously be upgrading that, yet it wasn't happening. Why? I honestly don't quite know. Like I said, mechanically seemed completely fine. Maybe just didn't understand how important upgrades were or how important it was to tech into a different unit comp. Like, you're playing against someone that, I think this Terran was on 3 factories, which is something that never got scouted, of course. But the moment you see that, then it's like, okay, that's going to be a lot of tanks. It's going to be a lot of Thors. Perhaps I want some higher tech myself as well, whether it's going to be Vipers or, well, mainly just Vipers. I would have loved to see Vipers here. And like I said, Lurker Ultra also would have been good. Overall, yeah, what can I say? Good macro. when it comes to producing workers, good macro when it comes to, or good mechanics when it comes to spreading creep, when it comes to building upgrades, it wasn't good enough. When it comes to making sure that you have production so that you can continuously produce whenever you need it, not good enough. There were a couple of times where you made a decision to basically do a run by, like you see Serral or Raynor do, except then you didn't have the backup that they usually have. Whenever they go for a move into a base, they make sure that if there's a counterattack, they have enough to at least catch that counterattack. And I think that often went wrong for you as well. So yeah, I don't think this was imbalanced as well. I think there were so many things that you could have so easily fixed that would have given you such a major win in this game, and just really basic strategic things like switching composition ever so slightly rather than Brutes, Ultra or Lurker, or just getting upgrades. Sorry, my friend, it is not Terran that is imbalanced, but instead it is you who sucks. And that's just the way it is. Alrighty, friends, that's going to be it for me as well today. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Is It Imba or Do I Suck? If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see all of you next time for a new video. Thank you, and bye-bye.